I've been meaning to make this one for a while. I was thinking about it for some time, and then I just watched a live thing on YouTube of a life coach that I like, who was talking about procrastination. I spent a lot of time procrastinating because the general consensus last year was that I should remain silent. But I'm over that now. I did for about 6 months. But there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. So this was to do with last year I kind of disassociated because of some trauma. And it got me thinking again about, I used to go to some Buddhist meditation classes, and I would try and figure out what the difference was between detachment and disassociation. I made some notes. Because I consciously did it at one point. I've said in another video, I stepped back because the situation was just too hectic. And I chose to just disengage emotionally. And then over the months that followed, it kind of worsened, and it got harder and harder to come back and feel anything at all, even the good stuff. Then what started to happen was even the good stuff made me sad. So I saw a counselor, quite a well-trained counselor, an EMDR person. Just a couple of sessions, I think about 3 sessions. I got more information. But we talked about some of this stuff, and I just found it quite interesting because I worked a program for many years, for addiction. And I found in the end, and I strongly believe in the program because it does get people sober, definitely. But I started to step back from it because my curiosity was, if it is trauma-driven, if addiction is self-medication, because I don't, honestly, I'm sorry, I'm going to do more research, but I don't believe it's a disease. And I started to ask questions, so people in my group got quite iffy and investigate alternative healing and plant medicines and all sorts of things, which didn't sit well with the program. So I sort of started to step back from it a bit, and then I re-entered it again. But what I found personally was, and it's super effective, if you don't know about the 12-step program, it actually was developed indirectly by Carl Jung, because the story goes, and I might not have all the details correct, that a wealthy family, their son was an alcoholic, and he kept embarrassing the family. And they had heard of this physician overseas that had had success with alcoholism. So they sent him over there, and he lived with Carl Jung for about 6 months. And he got sober, and then he returned home, and then he began to drink again a while later. And the family called Carl Jung again, and they said he started again, and he needs more therapy. At which point Carl Jung apparently said that he has not seen a cure for this kind of affliction. The only success that he has seen with it being alleviated is if there is some kind of spiritual awakening. And then somehow this guy ran into Bill W. at some point, and a conversation was had, and a light bulb moment was had, and the 12 steps were developed, which is basically a spiritual awakening for dummies. I mean, that's what it does. It's very, very clever. So I did that because I was desperate at the time, and I got very involved in it, and it does work like a bomb. But the pitfalls that I found, and I'm going to get probably shut down quite dramatically, but the pitfalls that I found was that being a trauma and abuse survivor, and I was still actually in the abusive relationship in a sense, what this program did was give me such solid tools to cruise through life that I never dealt with the situation fully. So what it did in the long run was it actually prolonged the abuse, because I could detach so effectively from what was going around me. And when I went back in, I was quite resentful about this, because in my 4th step, which is we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends. It's like a personal inventory of all the ways that one has fucked up and, done people in. And I ended up actually apologizing to 2 of my abusers. And because the program works, it's a peer-to-peer kind of group support. And it gets passed on with untrained people, with other addicts or alcoholics that have walked the path, which is also why it works so effectively, because people get each other. But what happened was, because it wasn't a trauma counselor and the situation wasn't addressed with some kind of academic knowledge, I guess, of what was actually happening. I was told to keep my side of the street clean. Step 1 is powerlessness. You cannot control other people's behavior. These are phenomenal tools to operate and walk through life and be very, very calm and serene. But if you're in an abusive relationship, it doesn't tell you to tell people to fuck off and take your power back. It teaches you to tolerate everything unbelievably well. And so my abuse continued for another 4.5 years of sobriety, and I just let it slide, thinking I was being spiritual. So I started to investigate spiritual bypassing last year because I was quite resentful about the fact that I had allowed this to happen inadvertently, and I love Eckhart Tolle, and I got into the Power of Now like 10 years ago, and also brilliant Zen Buddhism for dummies. I mean, he's great, but that does as well. So I started to investigate. I watched a talk that he did one night, because I often watch him, before I go to sleep. I listen to something cool. He doesn't like to call it mindfulness, he says, because that says the mind is full. And during the talk, something just kind of went, because I was investigating addiction and recovery and CPTSD and, all of the stuff that was happening, fervently looking for answers and alternatives to this program that it just doesn't resonate with me anymore. I find it very shame-based and very disempowering, and I don't think it's meant to be like that, but it's the way that it seems to play out in the groups that I went to, and I love them. I mean, group support is phenomenal. So everything has its pluses and minuses, but I'm still convinced that this is not a disease, and there is possibly a way out if one goes back far enough. And I've got some ideas on that. I'm just looking for somebody that's more academic and has more time to help me research this stuff. And I'm not crazy. This is a possibility because I've just done it. I've just experienced it. So I'm going to need my glasses. I'm actually quite a geek. Sorry, I'm a dork. So, gosh, I made a whole lot of notes here. So he starts off, Eckhart Tolle, with the Power of Now by saying the moment that you realize that you are not the thinker is when you awaken. And I think in Buddhism, from my classes, the meditations were based on stepping back and watching the thoughts. So that's how he starts the sort of awareness and not attaching to it. But this is a very, very powerful defense mechanism to disassociate from what's happening around you. And I know because I've used it effectively, because it's one of my best defense mechanisms is just to detach, but it's not detachment, it's actually disassociation. So my take on this so-called spirituality, because I see all these people as well, and I don't want to judge, but they're all spouting love and light, but nobody is willing to see or accept or be in truth, in the now, if it's unpleasant. So we're all doing it all the time. This whole like positive, just be positive. This is not spiritual. This is spiritual bypassing. This is disassociation. I've written here, I don't know, I was scribbling away last night because I just, I thought it's past due. True spiritual journey or presence is about being here now. whatever that happens to look like. It is truth. It is radical acceptance of what is. Yoga means letting go of the outcome. That's the yogic path. It's to take purposeful action, but not to attach to the emotions and to let go of the outcome. In that present moment, it's not passivity. Real acceptance is accepting it all. And real self-love means accepting it all in oneself, the dark as well, the shitty parts as well. And this is emotional sobriety. It's not normal or emotionally sober to be manically happy and positive all of the time either. So I found this article very, very well written by a psychologist who's clearly had some experience with recovery. And I'll read it at the end of it and I'll put a link to it. But that's just my take, is I love Eckhart Tolle and I love yoga and I love Buddhism and I love the Bhagavad Gita and Hinduism and spirituality. But, trying to find the hidden lesson in somebody kicking the emotional and psychological shit out of you on an ongoing basis is not spiritual. Real spirituality is going, this is happening, and taking constructive action to change it and standing in your truth. And then but then letting go of the outcome, not trying to manipulate the outcome as well. So that's just my take on Eckhart Tolle and spirituality. There's another, it's on, I think, my page. There's another guru, wise man. Let's call him a wise man, who's hilarious and very, very beautiful. And he's on my featured video channels. So all for it, because balance. And it's a great way to ground and find some calm in the storm. But if it's being used to avoid dealing with unpleasant feelings and difficult situations, it's actually detrimental. It's going to slow you down. So I would suggest you watch out for that. There were pretty stressful years, but I found a lot of peace in them. But I didn't progress at all. I stayed stuck in an awful situation and wasted a lot of time thinking I was being deep and spiritual and the bigger person. I wasn't. I was scared, and I was taking an easy way out. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Emotional sobriety. Spiritual bypass is a defense mechanism. Although the defense looks a lot prettier than other defenses, it serves the same purpose. Spiritual bypass shields us from the truth. It disconnects us from our feelings and helps us avoid the big picture. It is more about checking out than checking in, and the difference is so subtle that we usually don't even know we're doing it. The shorthand for spiritual bypass is grasping rather than gratitude, arriving rather than being, avoiding rather than accepting. It is spiritual practice in the service of repression, usually because we cannot tolerate what we are feeling or think that we shouldn't be experiencing what we're feeling. We need to remember that spiritual practice and emotional growth are not about achieving a particular quality of feeling good. Being a human being on a spiritual journey isn't about getting cash and prizes all the time. It is about being in the present moment, whatever it happens to look like. What are you experiencing right now? And how about now? Can you be present to all of your feelings without any one of them defining you?